Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and the news football shirt is on today, which means it's time to cover all of the latest news in FPL with the press conferences and injuries, as well as look at captaincy, fixtures and chip strategy as well. All to come. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new around here. Let's get started. So first of all, the press conferences, let's go through alphabetically, starting off with Arsenal. And today we got the very unfortunate news that Gabriel was not spotted in team training this morning. So that is a worry really, as Arteta has noted that there is some fitness and injury issues following the UCL game against Bayern Munich. Saka, however, was pictured training, so good news on him if you do still own Saka. Probably expected to play now, but there is that slight concern now about Gabriel and whether he will start or not, but probably a bit difficult to make a reaction to that given Arsenal have a double game week next week. So a risky one there, but I guess we'll see what happens. No definitive answers there. All we know is that he wasn't in training. For Aston Villa, there was no press conference, certainly no press conference at time of recording. I don't know if that's going to happen tomorrow perhaps, but Douglas Luiz, he is suspended until game week 35. So he's going to miss this Arsenal game, but he's also going to miss Bournemouth in game week 34 as well. So good news there if you own Arsenal attackers, Bournemouth attackers. That's going to be very beneficial, as Douglas Luiz, a real crucial player for the Villains. Watkins also played 82 minutes in the midweek. I don't know what you guys want to make of that, but obviously Aston Villa are also in European competition right now, so maybe not having as much rest as Arsenal, it may impact them a little bit, but obviously Watkins he's fine. He's not injured or anything like that. Just wanted to note that for you guys. For Bournemouth, Semenyo and Tavernier have been added to the injury list. Yes, they have picked up injuries over the past week, which means unfortunately they are going to be unavailable. Mefam with illness is still going to be unavailable for this game week as well, and there's no new returnees for Bournemouth either. For Brentford, Tony had a small hip injury apparently last game week, which is why he didn't start the game. But this week against Sheffield United, he should be absolutely fine to go ahead and play. We also see Pinnock back in training and expected to be in the squad this game week. Brighton have announced that Lamptey and Enciso have been added to the injury list, which I think is probably good news if you are a Stupinian owner, perhaps, against Burnley. That could be very interesting if you do still have a little Stupinian hanging around in your team. Could be kind of useful, particularly if we don't know if Gabriel is going to be available or not. Verbruggen has also been confirmed as the starting goalkeeper for game week 33. He's been getting a lot of starts recently, and he may be now the nailed-on choice for the Brighton goalkeeper slot. For Burnley, O'Shea is suspended following a red card. Trafford is available following illness, and there's no new injuries in that Burnley squad. For Chelsea, Sterling has an illness and may be unavailable this game week. He was added to the illness list, I guess, today, but Chelsea don't play until Monday, so I'm not actually convinced if he is going to be available or not. Chilwell is in partial training, so we're not sure if he's going to be available come Monday, but the fact that Chelsea play on Monday is probably good news. Gusto, he was simply rested for last game week. We have had that announcement, so anyone worried about Gusto's minutes, having not seen him in action last week, well, there's no worry there. He should be back in action against Everton on Monday. For Crystal Palace, Elise is apparently close to starting, looking much better for him. He obviously came off the bench in game week 32, so we could see more and more minutes for him. Ridevold also back in training this game week, and Gahey is apparently targeting a game week 36 return to the Crystal Palace team. For Everton, DCL has a hamstring issue, but apparently should be okay for this game week. Onana is back in training and presumably available as well. Garner did pick up a knock yesterday, and the only other thing is Gay might be available after missing out last game. He should be back as well. For Fulham, once again, everyone is available. Good news for Fulham. They don't seem to be getting any injuries at the moment. A clean bill of health there. For Liverpool, Jota and Trent were back on the bench in midweek. Jota actually got some minutes off the bench as well, so he could be back in action, maybe taking some minutes off the likes of Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez as we approach game week 33's fixture against Crystal Palace, but also the double game week next week as well. Trent, however, no minutes off the bench, and it did seem that he was in the squad to make up the numbers rather than necessarily being ready to start. So Bradley owners, you're probably still good for game week 33 at least. Alisson still not in full training, of course, which means Callagher still good to go for this game week. I'll be keeping a very close eye on that one as a Callagher owner, because because there's a chance still that Kelleher could be the starting goalkeeper for the double game week. Until we see news of Alisson back in full training, it's pretty doubtful that he starts. Of course, when Alisson is available, he is going to start. That just is not quite yet. For Luton, Mengi and Burke are new doubts for this game week. They've been added to the injury list and may not be available. Kabore is ineligible against his parent club Man City, and there's no other injury returnees either. So Luton's injury problems are getting worse and worse. They pretty much have no defenders available right now, and Man City, you would have thought, will probably destroy them. Could even be going for goal difference in this season for this game. It could be a really, really big score. So if we can get the right Man City players in our team this game week, that could be very, very profitable indeed when we're looking at those FPL points. And speaking of Man City, Pep Guardiola has not spoken to the doctors about Foden. I'm not really sure what that means, but Pep was asked about Foden, but he was being, I don't know, a little bit shy, a little bit coy, giving a direct answer. All he really said is that he hasn't spoken to the doctors about Foden, which to me suggests that he's fine. I mean, if Foden was really injured, then there would be a reason to speak to the doctor. You would have thought, having had that small injury, small knock a few days ago now. So I don't know about that one, but I have seen rumours that Foden is available. Whether or not he'll be rested against Luton is an entirely different question, with that game in the Champions League against Real Madrid still in the balance for next week. Ederson confirmed as the first choice goalkeeper after his benching last game week, so Ederson's going to be straight back into the team, should be playing every game for the rest of the season, you would imagine. And Rodri came out this week saying that he needs a rest, basically. He's played a lot of minutes this year, in fairness, and Pep Guardiola basically said, yeah, if a player doesn't want to play, then a player is not going to play. So Rodri, very likely that he is going to get a rest this week, which, to be fair, if it wasn't Luton Town, I'd be a little bit more worried, because Rodri, his record, when Man City have Rodri in the team, they play a lot better than when Rodri is not in the team. There's a huge difference there. For Manchester United, McTominay may be unavailable. Couldn't really find a reason why. Presumably there's an injury there. There's going to be a late decision made on Marcus Rashford with his injury, and Varane and Evans are still out. For Newcastle, Hall is doubtful, having not trained all week. Willock probably won't be available either, apparently, but you never can fully trust Eddie Howe. There's no other injury returnees, no Trippier still, but Livramento is apparently the closest. He's making some good progress and could see himself back in the Newcastle team reasonably soon. For Nottingham Forest, Awoniyi will hopefully return before the end of the season, but that's not going to happen quite yet. No return date for Bolly either, and Gibbs White may have picked up an injury during Game Week 32, one to keep an eye on. For Sheffield United, Robertson is going to be a late decision. Baldock is still out with that calf injury, but Archer did return last game week with some minutes off the bench. So if you still own Archer for whatever reason, maybe he gets some minutes over the next couple of game weeks, although I wouldn't be totally convinced by that one. He's probably not first choice in the Sheffield United front line at this moment. For Spurs, Richarlison is still unavailable. So if you still own Heung-min Son in your team, you haven't sold him yet, then I would be very, very wary of this one. Because Spurs play against Newcastle this week, which is a nice fixture, Son will be playing as the central striker still, on penalties still, and therefore could be actually be a really beneficial asset to own this week. So be very careful, anyone who is selling Son, because we now know that he's going to be playing as the central striker once again. Midfielder out of position, that's usually very, very good news, and Son has been pretty consistent over the past 5, 6, 7 game weeks. No new injuries, but there's also no new returnees for Spurs. It's just that Richarlison is going to be unavailable, with him targeting a return in Game Week 34. Game Week 35, actually, because Spurs don't even play in Game Week 34. For West Ham, no press conference at time of recording. That is coming a little bit later on this afternoon, but I thought we'd go ahead and record the video anyway, because it's the only press conference we don't have, and we did get a little bit of information before and after their Europa League game last night. Bowen, he wasn't in the squad. He's got a hip injury at the moment, so if you do own Bowen, probably a pretty easy sell at this point, and there's still no return date for Areola. And finally, for Wolves, an interesting one actually. Aït-Nouri has this minor issue. He will be part of the squad at least. We know he's going to be part of the squad, but the manager did note that he does have a minor issue at the moment. Obviously, that happened last game week. I don't know if he's feeling better now, if he's going to be starting or not. Probably like 50-50 at this point, but news indicates indicates that he is at least going to be in the squad. So this is not a big injury or anything like that, and should at least be good for double game week 34. Cunha, he's going to continue his reintroduction into the team with substitute appearances in the last 2 game weeks, and Chan and Dawson will also make the squad. Finally, a return for these 2 guys. I don't know if anyone still has Chan in their team, but hey, could be pretty good for game week 34 if he's expected to get the beginning of some minutes this game week as well. But there you go, guys. Those are the press conferences wrapped up. Let's have a look at some other things too. Now, I want to give a shout out to Lazy FPL because they very famously last game week broke the news, the exclusive team leak, that Foden would not be starting in game week 32. Now, a lot of us would not have this information. We would have not been able to react to the Foden news if it wasn't for Lazy FPL. And I'm very, very happy to say that we will be working a little bit more closely with Lazy FPL over the final few game weeks of the season. So let me tell you about it. It is a 100% free FPL newsletter. If you have an email address, all you've got to do is enter it in on their website and you can get weekly team roundups, exclusive team leagues, and like I say, there's going to be some exclusive FPL Mate content coming soon over there because we can't fit everything in the videos, and sometimes there's some extra stuff that we want to put out there, and that's going to be going in some of these newsletters, including my game week 35 wildcard team. That is going to be the big thing. I'm going to be working with Lazy FPL on talking about wildcard stuff for game week 35. So if you are on the wild card in game week 35, you might want to sign up. Also, if you want to get those team leaks, those team news roundups, if you know those weeks that I can't maybe do my videos on a Friday, sometimes I'm unavailable, sometimes there's not enough time, these newsletters will have you covered. I read them every week myself. They give me a lot of information for these videos, and it would be unfair for me to hide my sources from you. So you can sign up using the link in the video description or the pinned comment. Use that link. It helps support the channel, and it is completely free for you guys. And you get team leaks, you get team news, and exclusive FPL content. Guys, what are you waiting for? There's no reason to not sign up. Link in the description or pinned comment. Go, go, go. We also got the news this game week that the fixture calendar for the remainder of the season is confirmed. It's locked in. And I'm pretty happy to say our predictions this season were pretty much spot on, actually. So very, very happy to say that this is what we are dealing with for the remainder of the season. The big news, we kind of did already know this, but just to confirm it and reaffirm this with you guys, the teams that double in game week 34 are entirely different teams that double in 35 and 37. So we really do need to try and make some kind of quick transition between a game week 34 team and a game week 35 team, and you're going to want to do that hopefully by using a wild card or a free hit. But I want to go through some chip strategy with you as well. If you want to have this calendar, if you want to see these fixtures, then I have also posted this on my Twitter page if you want to save the image, or just feel free to take a screenshot of me right now. Take a screenshot, then you've got the calendar ready to go for your own reference. So yes, a few people asked me for a quick recap on the strategies and potential transfers you might want to make. So this is the table we kind of showed you a couple of weeks ago, and it's basically, do you have a wild card, do you have a free hit? Because depending on which of those chips you have, that is going to alter your strategy. Now, if you have both your free hit and your wild card, then you probably want to either wild card right now or wait until game week 35. Game week 35 seems like a little bit of a waste because of a lot of the players that you want in game week 35, you also want this game week as well. So wildcarding now could be a really good solution to get your team in perfect ship shape for this week. Then you want a free hit in 34 and bench boost in 37. Now, if you have your free hit but no wildcard, game week 34 is going to be a really nice free hit week, assuming you don't have too many double game week players for game week 34. Of course, if you have a lot of players for game week 34 and maybe not so many for game week 37, if you don't have many, you know, Man City, Chelsea, Spurs players, for example, maybe you can save your free hit for game week 37, but at the same time, Spurs, Chelsea, they double in 35 as well. So you're going to probably want to use your transfers to bring in these players regardless. So I do prefer free hit in game week 34, bench boost in 37, but it is going to be a little bit team dependent there. You could also, if you don't have a free hit, but you do have a wild card, you're in my situation, that means dead ending your team into game week 34, getting all those double game week players for game week 34, and basically wild carding them all out, removing those Crystal Palace, Wolves, Everton players. You don't want these players long term. So wildcard in Game Week 35 and set yourself up for a nice bench boost in Game Week 37. That way you can capitalize in full of the doubles in 35 and the doubles in 37 as well. And of course, if you don't have a free hit or a wildcard left, a Game Week 37 bench boost is probably going to be the best for you because it gives you a little bit more time to prepare for that bench boost indeed. Of course, if you are using your free hit, there's certain players that you will want to target. If you're not using your free hit in Game Week 34, there are other players you want to target using your regular transfers. And I want to go through some of those targets you might be thinking about going for. So if you are using your free hit in Game Week 34, the kind of goalkeepers you're probably looking at are Petrovic and Edison. For defenders, Ruben Dias, Byrne and Van Heck for a nice cheap option there. Of course, all of these players that we're mentioning now double in either just 37 or both 37 and 35. For midfielders, Foden, Gordon, Garnacho, these kind of guys right there. And for forwards, Isaac, João Pedro potentially there as well. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. You can go for other players as well, but I just wanted to highlight who I think will be some of the more popular picks among the top FPL managers from what I've seen so far, the kind of goalkeepers people are going for. If you are not using a free hit in Game Week 34, then you need to prepare for Game Week 34, which means going for Game Week 34 double Game Week players, such as Raya at Arsenal, Henderson in defence, Virgil van Dijk, Ben White, Ryan Ait-Nouri as well, if you think he's going to play this week. For midfielders, Luis Diaz and Havertz look really good, as do Ødegaard or Alexis McAllister potentially there as well. Eze, you could probably give him a miss this game week with this Liverpool game, but if you are looking for a cheap midfielder, you have a spare transfer going, then hey, why not go for Eze? Get yourself prepared for Game Week 34 because he looks really good for that double game week. And in terms of forwards, Darwin and Solanke are probably your two top picks for Game Week 34, although we maybe look at the likes of Mateta and Cunha as well. Now, a few people have asked me about wildcarding this game week, and I have to be totally honest with you guys, I don't like it. I would prefer to wildcard in Game Week 35 because it allows you to take more advantage of both Game Week 34 and 37 and 30 and 37 and 35 as a combination. So, ideally, you don't wildcard now, but if you feel you absolutely have to wildcard right now and you want to try and get the best out of the situation, you won't be able to maximize your potential returns, you won't be able to maximize your doublers because at the end of the day, you've got 15 slots available and none of the players who double in 34 also double in 37 and 35 in fairness as well there. So your team is going to be split up into players who double in 34 and players who double in 35 and 37. So here we go, guys. This is the team. We've got Raya in goal, Gabriel in defense, Gusto and Ruben completing the defensive lineup there. In midfield, Salah, Luis Diaz, Havertz, Palmer and Garnacho. Of course, if you can afford to go for a Saka or an Ødegaard instead of Havertz, I think that's absolutely fine as well. Up front, Erling Haaland and Isaac. And then on the bench, we've got Petrovic here, Mateta and Ait-Nouri ready for double game week 34, and Van Heck ready for game week 37. That gives us 7 double game week players for now, 3 double game week players for game week 35, and 8 double game week players for 37. Of course, as we move into game week 35, you probably want to look at picking up Heung-min Son, whether that's for Salah or Havertz or Luis Diaz. That's going to be kind of up to you. Maybe getting 2 Spurs players might even be nice for Game Week 35 there as well. As for Game Week 37, particularly if you're planning a bench boost, by that point, you're still going to have a few transfers to start to build towards a bench boost teams. You're probably going to have to take a few hits, though, if you plan on wildcarding right now. But the idea of this team is that we've got the Arsenal and Liverpool players mostly covered. 5 players from both Arsenal and Liverpool for Game Week 34. Those are the 2 main teams for the Game Week 34 double. So I feel like if you've got Arsenal and Liverpool covered, you're pretty much good to go. You're pretty much set. We've got 3 Chelsea players for Game Week 35 and 37. I think it's good to get those players in now because they're not necessarily players you want to be making transfers for. No Spurs players in this team because Spurs, of course, blank in Game Week 34. So it would probably be okay to wait until Game Week 35 itself before bringing in those Spurs players. And like I said, we've got a whole bunch of Game Week 37 doublers ready for a bench boost potentially there as well. The team costs 100.4 million. I think most of you will be able to afford to upgrade a few of these players, but I think this template is pretty good to start off with, to work off. If you can make some upgrades, if you can make some small tweaks to it, I think that's absolutely fine. But in general, if I had to wildcard right now, I would be doing something like this, but I still want to reiterate, I would prefer to avoid it. Of course, this comes from Fantasy Football Hub, their team planning tool. You can check that out in the link in the description as well if you would like to. Game Week 33 captains, the best options are Salah and Haaland, in my opinion. Crystal Palace, not the greatest fixture, but it is a home game for Salah, and he should be pretty nailed on to start in Game Week 33. A few more concerns about the minutes over Haaland with that crucial game against Real Madrid looming in the midweek next week. But a game against Luton Town at home with all of the injuries that Luton have, this could be insane, particularly as De Bruyne is also expected to start in this game. That Haaland and De Bruyne link-up is always very, very useful if you're looking for those captain points from the likes of Erling Haaland. Of course, if you're feeling brave, Heung-min Son always going to be an option as well. I also like Tony against Sheffield United and Palmer against Everton. The consistency Palmer has shown this season is unmatched, so definitely a player you at least want to consider. In terms of our goalkeepers start order, Kelleher versus Crystal Palace looks very good. Raya at Arsenal always looks good. Edison and Verbruggen, Flecken, Petrovic, these are kind of players I would be very happy indeed to start in my team. If you've got a Henderson of Crystal Palace or Martinez, Vicario, these kind of players, not so confident in. Onana, I know a lot of people have Onana, wouldn't be super confident in him either this game week, but there are some options here, to be fair, that you could potentially go for. Kelleher and Raya seem to be the top choices for this week, in my opinion, though. And that wraps us up for Game Week 33. Loads of information to take in, but hopefully you found this video very useful. If you did, make sure you do leave a like. Do subscribe if you're new around here. And if you've got any comments, leave a comment below. And I'll be happy to answer any of your final FPL questions before we do the deadline stream tomorrow. Of course, don't forget to check out Lazy FPL. There's loads more FPL content on the channel for Game Week 33 if you want to check that out as well. And apart from that, I'll see you on tomorrow's deadline stream. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.